65, and it's titled Balancing Career Growth and Stress as an FP&A. So in case anybody in the house is like, oh, what's the meaning of FP&A? Financial planning. Well, actually, the full meaning is financial planning and analysis, but then in this context I've used it, it will be more of like a financial planning analyst. And without taking much time, I'm going to go straight into the session. In fact, maybe I should just plug my second screen. So one of our sponsors, as usual, is FMI, and just so you know, we are already finalizing the plans to having a mock exam for those who are interested in doing the FMI exam. So you will be able to, you'll be able to come partake in the mock exam for free, and you know, be able to improve your confidence level towards taking the real exam. And secondly, too, is so the sponsors, we are UrBizEdge. We are the one powering this. And in case you're interested in any of our training, which runs Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, you can always reach out to us. Financial modeling, business intelligence using Power BI and Excel training. And today, this is the session we are having. And if you see on my first slide, I wrote the add part. The truth is, a lot of us, I know this will apply to even beyond just people in the financial modeling, financial planning space. By the way, let me drag this screen here so that I can see things as they are happening. So this also applies beyond just those in financial planning and, you know, people in the finance space. But as you know, this is financial modeling. That's why I might be maybe relating it more with people within this space. But I know that if you are not within this space, you're trying to cross, you will find some applicable points also for you. So if you look at the title, just in case that part I was too fast with it, right? Balancing career growth and stress as an FP&A. Now, the big issue, the thing that comes as the first thing that stares you in the face is you have a life outside of work, right? And then you have also the need to grow your career. So if you work in the finance space, you are always in one of two categories. Either you are not, I don't want to use a very demeaning kind of word. Is either you feel like, you know, you are not being given enough to do, you are not allowed access to much, you know, like your work is so streamlined and so made into a very boring role. So it's either you are just not motivated, you are not doing enough, you are not feeling like you are part of something big, you are not involved enough in all that is happening, or you are overwhelmed. So it's very rare to see someone in the finance space who is just feeling like all is cool. Who is feeling like I have just the right amount of stress at work. It's always either, you know, they are not letting you in on all you want to be in on, or you are overwhelmed, you know. So I'm going to talk about most of us that we fall in the category of over engaged, because that's what happens the moment your career picks up in this space. You find out that you are just like every day just breezes off, and you know, like you can't even think of what you've done for yourself, you know, during the weekday outside of work without it being a struggle. Sometimes some of us even need to still use our weekends. So I'm going to talk about how that hard part is, first of all, life outside work, right? All there is to you besides your finance job. And then that nagging, I don't want to use the word need, but that that thing that stares you in the face as regards there's a lot to learn. There's this huge vista ahead that you know that you are not well abreast of. Sometimes maybe you are working so hard you don't even have time to go for trainings, which I'll talk about on the next slide. But number one thing I want to bring out is you need to take a look at it from this perspective, right? Or start your digging into the solution from understanding that, well, as it concerns your corporate finance job, there is a part of you that is outside of the work, and then there's a part of you that within the work also needs to grow, needs to know how to do things more, how to also understand the newer trends more. And I want to ask a question. Anybody in the audience wants to maybe share what they think uh, can be a way to handle this hard part before I talk about what I have as my own opinion on it. How do you think one can better handle the need to know more, the need to grow, the need to be abreast of what is new and the right trend and future in career in finance, in your job role, and also having it's not like you're sacrificing everything else. So how do you approach it? What do you think is a more sustainable way to balancing the two? Anyone wants to share? You can all unmute too, and I hope you all hear me loud and clear. So going one, going two. You guys are making this look like a one-way conversation. Okay. In interest of time, and maybe those that will watch the recording so they don't experience an awkward silence, then I'm going to continue. But you all have the ability to unmute and speak. So it's not like maybe there's anything I've done that prevents you from talking. You can always interject too. So the way I approach balancing these two starts even from the choice of where I work. And sometimes you cannot choose too much who you work with, and how they treat you and how the work is like. But we all can choose to a very large aspect where we work. So for me, when I was starting out, uh, maybe I didn't start out as a financial planning analyst anyway. I started out more as a general business analyst and MIS. And okay, Adewumi, you want to say something? Change your mind. So I started out as someone not purely into FP&A, but then it's the same thing that applies to what I want to say here that applies there. When I was working at a job that was a data analysis role, and I found out that this is what I really want to do, but unfortunately, where I was working, I was in a situation where I was not, how do you put it? I was not allowed to stretch myself as much as I wanted, right? So I wanted to do more, but there were so many restrictions, there were so many corporate policies that even when my boss wanted me, wanted to give me the leeway, the permission to do more, but because of all the hierarchies and processes in place in the company, it's a global company, I could not. So I changed job. I moved to another job where the main reason they were hiring me is actually because I presented myself as multi-skilled, and they said they were going to let me be involved in as many things as I'm interested in. So when I was there, true to the whole thing, I was involved in a lot of things. I had my hand in almost all the departments except maybe out of like say 7 departments, I was helping like 5 departments, right? So at the beginning, I was enjoying the thrill. Then at some point, it became a bit overwhelming, and then I decided to also switch again. So I've always seen that apart from the first job that I had, where the switching was involuntary, I was let go due to some things that happened to the whole company globally. Uh, every other job that I switched was purely because of this balance. And I wanted the last one that I talked about that I said I was almost overworked. Also, too, the job was so far from where I lived. I was, you know, spending either all the time to get to work and do work, than having to do anything else. So I know that that's one thing sometimes I've seen people also have to do. Sometimes fixing this hard part might not even be fixing it within the current job you have. It might require you having to start thinking of how to switch to another. Let's say you've chosen the right career in finance. So it's not like it's the career itself, it's just purely that you're overstretched or you're underworked, But in this case, most of us will be overstretched if you're actually doing the finance very well. So you might need to step back and evaluate, what are all the things that you cannot control in the present situation you are in, that the only way to achieve some kind of control is to change the entire environment, almost like relocate, maybe relocate job wise or relocate even country wise. So that's one way sometimes to fix this one. Then the one that still harder, you are in the company, it's not like you've made those changes, or it's not a problem of you're in the wrong place. You chose where you are, you like where you are, but still you're overworked. So for me, that's my own current state. I I'm part of the founder of the company, so obviously I chose it, right. And my choosing here was part of the result of one of my other jobs where I felt that I prefer to choose what I'm working in. I prefer also to be able to do what I really want to do and not just what somebody decides that is important and then they make it unimportant again. But essentially, I know that I chose where I am right now. Okay, in terms of what I mentioned about here, that you might need to want to change your environment to have a bit more control. But then when you are where you really want to be, then how do you still manage the stress? How do you still balance, the need to grow, the need to also. So I have here like a quadrant, and you will see that there's a kind of pattern. You might not be obvious at first, but the things upper have something in common, the things lower have something in common. There's always this, again, another mini strain between you keep learning, and then also applying what you are learning, being visible there, rubbing minds with others. So a lot of times when we are learning, especially most of us who are in the finance space, those in the sales people in the sales field, they might not have this kind of a concern. But those of us in the finance space, when you are learning, it's a very private thing. Sometimes we prefer to read books, we prefer to do maybe one-on-one classes, because we always feel our problems, our requirements are very not so general. You know a lot about some things, you just want to improve on some aspects that it's very specific to you, either because of the area you work or because you've never had time to learn in that aspect, whereas you've learned every other thing. So sometimes you find out that the kind of training you are going for are not those training that are so general, where they could have like a lot of people together that they are training. Sometimes, as much as you can control, you are looking for something really customized, something where you might be just not more than four, or sometimes just only you who is undergoing that training. So the moment you are improving your skills, you are learning, you are reading book, right, you are at the same time not able to, you are in an environment where you are not visible, you are not attending industry events. So in summary, right, let's start from the upper left. A lot of us have books to read, books that are maybe based on recommendation in some postgraduate courses we are taking. It's not uncommon for many of us to be doing ACCA, doing some online masters, doing some other programs where they keep recommending books. You have a lot of books to read, and then there are backlogs. So yes, that reading time to read is something that many of us find difficult to create, or just don't know where your time is going. And then there's the training and courses. So some of us have actually identified things that will immediately boost your productivity at work, or your company has training project, or other people are going for training, and so you have identified that these are the trainings that you want to go for, but still, you know, maybe they are not approving you going for the training because, oh, it's end of month reconciliation, it's start of month auditing. There's always something happening that is always making you shift it and keep shifting it, and then you find out that it's looking like, a whole year is going and you are not done. Maybe out of the 4 trainings you've identified as super important, you've only done 1 or none. Okay, so that's another thing. Then if you go down, that's also, it's not just enough to learn and learn in an enclosed place or learn within very few people. There's also that one that comes that's tied to like being exposed, and that happens at industry events. So you attend industry events. Nigeria, not so much. There are not so many industry events for finance folks here, but I know that in Africa there are a lot. South Africa is doing well. South Africa has this CFO. Maybe what I will do is I might share some of the ones I can share with the entire group via our meetup page. But there are industry events that you can take advantage of. The thing about industry events is it's as if you are networking and gaining exposure. So you are making yourself visible. We all know the power of network, but not just that, you're also being aware of what other people are doing in other spaces. What are the latest practices, how are things done outside of the domain, outside of that niche you exist in. And then also, more importantly, you are in a less judging environment. What do I mean by less judging environment? When you are in a training, it's either you know or you don't know. When you are in an industry event, you're just soaking things in. You are not trying to be like, I need to know it now, or I'm knowing it, or I don't know it. You are just soaking things in a less judgmental way. So it's a bit more relaxing, and it's a bit more of networking, and at the same time, it's also a way to grow yourself, to be seen by others, and to know what other people are doing in different aspects of the industry. Then you'll see I've been saying networking. There are also things about being visible. The only thing that I want to mention about being visible, separate from industry events, is the need to speak, the need to present, the need to, many people don't see it as a need, but I have to tell you that you are doing your career a disservice if you don't make yourself visible in terms of contributing, creating things. If you're not the speaking type, if you're not the type who likes to, come on maybe like as I'm doing a webinar, you can have a blog, you can write articles, you can be active in forums, right? It has 2 advantages. Advantage number 1 is that it actually helps you to know more. But let's even leave that knowing more, since that's what this upper one has covered for. The advantage number 2 is what I want to really stress. When you are contributing, when you are creating content, opportunities come to you. When I say opportunities, not just opportunities for job or opportunities for something that will give you money, opportunities to become close to other people, other creators especially. So imagine that you go imagine that you are, let's say, here on TV, right? But now you are on TV as maybe with Professor Patutomi, with Bismarck Rewan, with you are someone that, as they are asking their opinions, you're asking your own opinion. Compare that with all these Who Wants to Be a Millionaire TV game show, where there are the people that are on the focus on the stage, and then there are people who are in the audience, or Oprah Winfrey's all this other talk show and Moment with Mo kind of stuff. There are people in the audience. Now imagine that you are in the audience, right? So you see that the difference between the two is big in terms of when you are part of those on the stage, right? You get credibility. The other guys know you. You get more opportunities to talk. And personally, it allows you to begin to appreciate what you know. It allows you to, there's a feeling of creating. If you create something, the feeling is different from I know it, I can do it, but now I've created it. I don't know how to express it in words, but it's a very powerful one. Even if you do a 30 seconds YouTube video, right, and you see a comment that says, "Wow, this thing is something I've been trying to know. With your video, I just understood it better." I tell you, the feeling you will have about that compared to when it was still in your head, you knew it, compared to the day before when you didn't create that video, it's completely worlds apart. If you don't experience that feeling, you can never know it. And so I just want you to also start incorporating into your own agenda how you can start becoming a creator. You don't have to be an expert. You can be sharing your journey. You can be sharing your experiences as you are learning. That's how I started. That's how many of the people that I even look up to, that's how they started. They started by sharing. They learn a little thing today. They share it. It could even be an opinion where they just want to get other people's points of view. But you pick a platform or you pick platforms that are consistent. So don't pick a social media where if you post today or what you post today is gone tomorrow. I don't see that as something that makes you visible as much. That one will drain you. It will drain you rather than, blog post, what somebody wrote 10 years ago, I still read it. But then I won't see what you post on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, even 10 days ago. It's very hard to see. So you want to be more strategic. So now, what do I mean by this gets harder? These are what I think anybody who is really interested in growing their career needs to have a couple of them. How you mix them up together, I don't know, but at least you should have some things that are in, as you have books you're reading, you have courses and trainings that you are taking, you attend industry events, then you do things that make you visible in the space. In fact, creating content, create things, don't just be a consumer. Not because I'm just saying who will create what to be consumed, but more for a selfish need now. When you create, uh, it just makes you a lot better. There's a whole lot of positive things that come with it anyway. Jobs, opportunities, coming, connections, and you never can tell. You might even end up deciding to resign your job and be doing this on a part-time basis that will now make life a lot easier. So I move on to the next slide. If you have any question as we go on, please feel free to ask. Or if you want to say something, you can always say. So this is self-explanatory. All of this you're doing all of this while at the same time you have a family. You have things that are even more important than the work to also attend to. So how do you, like I keep mentioning, how do you do all of this while keeping everything balanced, right? So we've talked about the need to grow. That's what we just finished here. They need to grow, they need to do more. What about the other aspect, the life outside of work? How then do you also go about it? I might not be the best person, but the good thing is about 10 years ago, I took a course, or 9 years ago, I did a 10-month course on stress management. And in fact, I got a certificate that I can practice as a professional stress consultant in the UK. So it was a UK school. So even if I'm not practicing, they taught us thoroughly for 10 months. I still remember the things. I applied them in my life. And so this is it. See, there are two kinds of stress. There is good stress and there is bad stress. We call the good stress eustress, EU stress. Eustress. The bad stress is bad stress. I don't think it has another name, or distress. Okay, we can call that one distress. So in life, now not just in work now because I'm combining everything together. So in life, the two extremes, having too little stress and then having too much stress is bad. They're like where you don't want to be. Then what's now the difference between a good stress and a bad stress? Sometimes the same thing that you consider a good stress suddenly becomes a bad stress. It's all a combination of three things. Number one is the motivation. How is that thing that is giving you stress aligning with your motivation? Doing an exam is stressful, but not all of us consider it as a bad stress. If it's an exam that you chose, if it's an exam that is going to boost your career when you are doing ICANN, when you are doing some of all these things. Some of you are, those are still things you are proud of, even though you know that they were a very stressful aspect moment in your life when you are doing those things. But you don't think of them as bad stress. Why? The motivation was there. You saw the reason, you saw the value in doing it, right? Even if you are sleeping 4 hours a day, some other people are sleeping 8 hours a day and they still consider their life, their day more stressful than you that slept 4 hours a day that exam period. Why? They were not motivated as much for whatever was keeping them awake than you were for that thing that you are keeping you awake. So there's that motivation. Number two is control. If that's, for me, that's one thing I enjoy a lot. For most entrepreneurs, that's the one thing that you find that you enjoy more than even your colleagues that might be working in, a very, very big organization, earning maybe times four what you are earning. But, because they are not like how will I put it now? It's not their company per se. They are not the one who suddenly decides everything. So it has a bad side or a good side. But I'm talking about the control as a good side now. They will feel more stressed than you. And so let's talk about the control in terms of how, as an employee, you can begin to tweak it. So control is in the thing I'm doing, how involved, how much control do I have about the outcome and the processes. One of the things that stressed me the most in some of the jobs that I've considered most stressful is where today someone comes up with, this is what we have to do. And they're talking about it in a very big way, in a very this is it, we must all go in this direction. And then I burn myself out, I put in all my effort, like you do an exam and then you pass. It's not like we didn't pass. And then they say, oh, this your exam you did is going to be valid for only 60 days. They are canceling that exam. Your ICANN is no longer acceptable. They are doing another version of ICANN. You, you know how you're going to have a very bad feeling about that. And then I imagine it is a company where you work, and then 1 month after they come again with another, you see the whole thing replaying. You're not going to think of it as a good stress anymore. You won't be enjoying every moment you are involved in that whatever new project, because you can't control the outcome. Now let's talk about processes too. There are many of us where we work, right? We are proposing what should be the process that should be followed based on what we know in terms of best practices. Power BI, you've gone to learn Power BI, you've seen the value, you've gone to conferences, you've gone to webinars, you've watched a lot of content online. You see that there are a lot you are doing internally that it's as if you are just being stressed unnecessarily. Because if the company acquires Power BI or if they upgrade your Excel, you'll be able to do those things faster, maybe even automate them. And there are some companies where they even deactivate macro, where even if you know macro, you will not be able to use it because the company has deactivated macro. Because you cannot control the processes too, you begin to experience more stress than is necessary. So it becomes a case of bad stress. Okay. So we've talked about the first one was, this one is the control. The first one was motivation. Yeah. So motivation, control. Then the third one is about your own capacity. What I consider good stress, where my own capacity is, right? And for me, it's a good stress. I know some other people who are starting out in the field, or people who have worked maybe with me on some projects. And for me, I'm like firing on all cylinders, and they are just already stressed out. So there's also that you know your own capacity, right? So how do we now use all these three things to know what is good stress and what is bad stress? So good stress and bad stress are not intricate things. They are not things that you look at and you say, oh, this one is a good stress, this one is a bad stress, based on just the characteristics of that activity or the situation itself. It is in conjunction with those three things I've said. So if you are in a role, if you are in a situation where almost all the time you are not motivated, then you will always see yourself experiencing anger, anxiety, exhaustion, and maybe even breakdown. And you'll be wondering that when you are much younger, you used to do a lot more. It's not like the activity level is something unknown to you. Maybe when you are starting out your career, you used to even do times two more of whatever you are doing now in terms of stress level and work and days you are awake, hours you are awake. But because you are not motivated anymore, you're experiencing a different feeling. You're experiencing anger, panic, exhaustion, and all. So what you do is there's no one size fits all, but you want to start evaluating those your activities that give you stress from that level and think about it. Can you fix the motivation part? What do I mean by can you fix the motivation part? I'll give you an example of one practical way, not my own example, but then you will relate with this. So because of that, I'm feeling stressed out. Okay. Now, I have identified that a key reason why I'm feeling stressed out is lack of motivation. What do I do? One out of two things. First is I can look for an external motivation. I don't know if you have heard of this process of organizational. There's this thing we did in MBA, organizational. Forgotten the other word about it, but the truth is that, or the point I want to bring out of from that learning in that MBA course was that, when motivation is a combination of valence, value, and reward. So if there's a limit to how much money can reward you, some of you, it's not the more money that you get, somebody saying, oh, we're going to attach a bonus to that thing that will motivate you. It might not even be possible. And it might not be that you see any big deal out of the outcome. So you might not get a motivation out of, oh, we are building the world class, or we are going to build something that is undone before, or like you are going to be looking out for the outcome that will come out. So how can you get something else? There's this valence, there's this ability for you to say, this thing that is not giving you motivation, right? How can I tie it to something bigger? How can I tie it to something else outside of whatever situation you are into it at? So I'll give you an example that we can look at, from a practical standpoint. I'm a staff at company ABC, right? I've been at that company for 15 years. The role I'm no longer motivated because I've been doing this for too long. I feel that I should be, I should have moved up the ladder to do something more valuable in quotes, right? So the workload on me, I feel is something that we should be even be three doing the amount of work I'm doing. And so I do not have motivation and I'm feeling stressed out. Okay. So what can I do if I want to find a way to improve my motivation? So right now I'm in a situation where the outcome cannot improve my motivation. And I'm also at a situation where the results, no, not the result, it's not possible for them to tie a KPI to what I'm doing that will now lead to bonus, and then the bonus will be a motivation. What I can do, number one, that's one of the advantage of creating. I can start creating. Most of the people who are bloggers, who are creating most of the things we read online, sometimes it's an escape for them. They are not really motivated by what they are doing with those things at work. And so they go out to go and seek out, a more invigorating motivation, so you could be like, create your own scenario of how this thing, you're doing it in a different way. So creating can be a way. Start creating stuff. Start creating. Some people write book if you're the kind of person that like to write book. You've gotten a lot of experience in that domain. If you write a book, great, but that's an extreme one. You can have a blog post where you're writing ideas you're having, things you come across, stuff you've solved. And by doing that, it drastically eases the stress from that motivation standpoint. Why? you see that every problem you face, you know that there's a place you will go to go and write about it. So even the day-to-day going to work gives you ideas for what to create content around. That becomes like a motivation. So that's one. Then number two is uh, there are some exams, there are some certifications that to getting them requires work experience in some roles. I'm not so very conversant without CFA process, but I think even if you write the CFA exam and you pass all three levels and you don't have years of experience, right? They will not give you the charter until you clock, I don't know, maybe 3 or 5 years experience in that domain. Okay. So some other times you could find some other kinds of positive goals. It could be a certification, it could be let me tell you some of the things we do in the consulting space. You can become a technical reviewer. You can become a technical reviewer for a course, maybe a university course, an adjunct faculty, or you can become a technical reviewer for a book. But what am I trying to make clear is the fact that your years of experience that you are thinking that you have spent too much time in this role, you are no longer motivated, becomes the very thing those people are using to say, you know what, you are the perfect person to provide this support, to be part of this high value event. And because of that, you find an escape for that, your anger and your dissatisfaction with you doing the same thing, every day at the same role. So that's motivation part now. What about if the problem you are facing is due to the fact of you cannot control, you don't have control over what gets thrown at your desk and then what gets yanked off? What something you've poured the whole of your working hours, and even though they are paying for your time at work, doesn't mean that what you do is rubbish instantly. So that control thing sometimes might be something you want to take up with internally with your HR and your bosses. Some companies have processes around that. Even we that we are small, the HR consultant who set up an HR process in our place also created a way where staffs, a person can make it clear, can fix this kind of stress of control, make it obvious that make it known that you are not happy with the process internally that is causing things to be thrown at your desk, that is making you feel like not within control of even your own role and what you are contributing to, because it's an internal process failure. Actually, if a staff feels that way, there's a process failure internally as regards to how things are happening. So it's not just something that they will say they should see as something personal to you, but rather as an internal process failure that HR and some business process persons, owners within your company, should be able to help, or you should be able to accost them on regarding that. So that control, that's one way. That's the most that's the quickest way to get a result. Let me use that word. Then the other way can be, just maybe again jumping ship. Maybe jumping ship in terms of departments, can be in terms of if your company has different subsidiaries or different sections, you might be the same role but in a different section under, in a different environment, that you might have more control and not be in that place where you are just unsure about the value of whatever you are doing. So that way you will no longer, exhaustion is what lack of control causes more. You just have fewer energies available for your work. Why? Because some of our energies change with the fact that I'm getting close to the result. But when there's no result to look forward to, then you see that you have fewer energy, right? You just get exhausted easily. Maybe before even closing hour, you're already tired. You can't wait to leave work. Why? There's really nothing beyond clocking in time, that lack of control on what you do causes. So then the other one, the last part is the processes. If you cannot control, there are better ways to do things, but the company is using some ways that are still archaic, or they are not open to wanting to use that better way. And because you know something in your head that is a better, when you didn't know, not a problem. You could trudge in, using the same working in one old software or old process, and it's taking so much time, and but you just felt that's the only way. So it was not a problem. But now that you are exposed, now that you know, it becomes a problem, because every time that you are doing that thing and you are spending so much time on it that you could have spent a lot less time, you fatigue. You start experiencing fatigue at it. You start really feeling tired doing it, more tired than what you can even be able to describe to somebody else. So what you do again in that case sometimes is to make a case for why that needs to happen. Sometimes you might need to be bold and start using those other tools, and then slowly, finding a way to incorporate it such a way that others will notice, and eventually, someone up there will take it up and ensure that it's done. So there are always, it's one of those things where it's like everything in life where there's a compromise. You might just have to find a way to ease them into it. If it's something that is related to money, if you be using it, there are some software that we sometimes we use. Now I'm talking about, when I say we, when I used to work with some companies, we use it, we use the free version, and then there will be watermark, and then we use it like that. And then if the boss says, I like this thing, but can you get rid of the watermark? I'll say, yeah, you guys have to pay. That is not a free software. That's why it's having watermark. So I'm doing what they expect me to do. Then I'm doing that one that I want to do too. So I'm sending them both. And naturally, since that other one is better, right? They will want to get more of that other one. And then they might even be saying, let's move everything there. And then they find out that, oh, because I've always been using it from back end, I've been from the backyard, I've been using it from a free version of what I can reasonably afford to get, then, they cannot get all the value they have now seen a taste of. Then they start also wanting to change the processes. So there are so many ways. The thing about processes is that if the company is a for-profit company, where it's not a politicking company, where everybody is all about the politics and no value, right? It's easy to solve that one, because the moment you can make a case, a visible case for that process change, when people can see the value instantly, normally the resistance will drop. So the summary of these parties, you want to find a way to look at all the things causing you bad stress at work. Now, this one is at work. I don't know about at family or outside of work. Uh, that one is outside of this um, uh, webinar. But at work, as a financial planning analyst, and that's very common. Financial planning analyst, like I said, you are either underworked or you're overworked. You are hardly ever optimally worked, or what's what to use now. You're either overworked or you're underworked. So the thing is, how do you still be doing the same amount of work? Because you might not be able to control how much you can let go of. But then that same amount of work, you are having motivation, you are having control, you are not having a pullback due to the processes. So that way, the same amount of activities and inputs and an all, but you are not falling on the bad stress side, you are falling on the good stress side. So you are having it as something that you are even motivated to do, you are proud of your work, and yes, it's stressful, but the result is there and you get good stress. So the advantage of good stress is that all these things on the bad stress side, you won't experience them. Yes, you will know that you're busy, but that's what you will leave it at. I'm busy, but not that I'm stressed out. You won't be having the words I'm stressed out frequently, popping up in the way you describe your day. And maybe later, if you are able to also reduce the amount of activities, but pending till when you can reduce the amount of activity, you can even change the feelings that go with the activities you are facing. You can change from feelings of exhaustion, of panic, of anger, of breakdown to, feelings of I'm 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 busy, I'm creating value. I know that I don't have time so much for other things. But yes, the thing I'm doing are things that I'm proud of. Okay. So and this is I ride a bike. I had to learn to ride what we call power bike last year. And one thing that I learned a lot from it. I learned three things. Maybe I'll share the three things because I don't know which one you might find maybe more valuable than even the one I really wanted to share. So I went to a school called Ride Easy, Ride Easy. And their motto is safety first. So like you must always be safe and all of that. But when we started, the class is into practical and theory. So they tell us about power bikes, different, I mean, let me use the right word, motorcycles, the different types of motorcycles. There's cruise bike, sports bike, road, street bike, cruiser, adventure bike, touring bikes. They're like, I think 8 or 7 different types of bikes. And then they tell us about what's different about them, how a bike works, how you turn, and all the theory part. I was getting it very well. Like they ask a question, I always get the answer kind of correct. At some point, the person teaching us will say, okay, Michael, you don't answer. I know you will get the answer. Let other people answer. And then we go on the practical side, and then I'm on the bike and I'm sweating and like everything I know is not working. I'm applying the knowledge that is in my head, but the result is not. And then the other people who are struggling with the theory, who will answer the questions correctly, I mean, completely wrong. They were just getting it as if their hands know the right thing to do and their heads kind of, were getting the whole theory wrong. And that thing taught me something that, the same way I'm having a class and I look at some people in the class and say, okay, type a formula, and then they say it's not working, and then I go and look at their PC and they didn't put equal to, or they didn't put something that to me I'm like, how in your mind will you type something without putting this one there? And I'm looking at them like, the way the other people look at me in the class and they abandon me, they'll just leave me in the theory, in this practical, like Michael will just be on his own, he's on that spot, still trying to move the bike. And they are going laps and so it taught me that, well, I think we all have our strong points and weak points, and you can't just you'll be above average in some things, you'll be below average in some things, and it's just normal. If you always feel like you're above average in everything, maybe your life is not broad enough, like you're just sticking to only the things that are your comfort zone. But the moment you start maybe trying to do a few other things, exploring, you will just see that you are completely like you are like a dummy or a dullard in some other things, and so maybe it makes you more tolerant. So it helped me to be better in training too. I don't look down on anybody in the class. I understand that I'm like that kind of person too when I was learning to ride bike. So that was lesson number one. Lesson number two, which is even the main thing that I wanted to point out, they always tell us ride your ride. What does ride your ride mean? They said the most of accidents, which is like crash, which if you think about it in your corporate, as a professional, as burnout, the people who are burning out, the people who are crashing, the moment people who rose, uh, if you're riding a bike and you're having a time of your life and you're riding in a group and you're all speeding, the guys who are at the front, right? They're like, we're in a career, we all graduated from the same year, we all finished NYC, you are CFO, me, I'm still deputy, or I'm still like a mid-level finance manager, but you're already CFO, you're in front, fifth way ahead of me. That's what it looks like, right? But then the people who crash more are usually those kind of people. So, so what they tell us is that don't ride in such a way that it's just as if like you are not controlling anything and you just know you are just speeding. You don't feel like you're in control anymore. Your life is just speeding, your career is just speeding, everything is just happening to you. Yes, somebody from outside is seeing your career zooming because you are speeding, you are here, you are this, you are being promoted maybe too frequently, or you are changing jobs, every now and then, and everybody's seeing it as a lot is happening in your life. But then you yourself know you don't have control. They say it's better never to be in that kind of a situation and being the one where you have control, but you think you are slow. That is better than you are fast and you are not controlling what is happening. So what I want to bring out from it is that they tell us to ride our ride, like ride at your own control level. Let me use that word, where you are able to balance things out. So you don't want to put yourself in a situation where the pressure is beyond what you can handle. There are sometimes when the pressure is so much that you just tune out. Tune out is you are just receiving all the punches. You know, in a boxing match, when the person cannot throw any punches, just trying to dodge and is receiving punches, like you are just trying to dodge, reduce the impact of all that is attacking you at the same time, rather than you being the one in control and setting your direction and all. So the moment you feel like you are not in control, sometimes it's a signal. It can be a signal that you are not riding your own ride. You are not growing at your own pace. You are not taking things at your own pace. You are just could be out of competition, because that's common for us in the corporate space. There's always somebody doing better than you. There's always someone you know more than, who is getting more from what he knows. And for us in the consulting and training space, it's a very, it can be dog eat dog, where sometimes you'll be wishing the other people bad luck so that they will slow down small and then you can catch up. But the truth is, that is worse. You speeding is worse than you going at your own pace and being in control. Being in control can really, really make you have a balanced life. You know, something can happen at your child's school and they call you, and it won't be like the end of the world, because you're a bit in control of your time. You could be able to attend. Not that it's as if, oh boy, there is no more space for any emergency. Your life is already an emergency every day, you know. So the other, I said there were three things I learned. The third one that I learned there is that, you know, there's not so much difference between all of us. What do I mean by difference between all of us? Some people are fast at learning things, some people are slow at learning things, but the brain will still learn the thing. So all the people that were learning faster than me, you know, that were doing it a whole lot better, such that I was really ashamed of myself. Eventually, they might still be better than me at it too, but eventually I'm riding the bike. I go where I want to go. Some other people even look at me and think I'm superstar, but I know that I'm not, because I know what I was compared to other people in the class. But the point I just want to bring out is, eventually what I wanted to gain, the real reason why I went to learn how to ride a bike, I got it, and I even got more. The real reason was to avoid traffic. But then, in addition to avoiding traffic, I started looking cool. Like, people started considering me as someone that's not like a regular person. They look at you as, oh, this guy is a cool guy. So that's something I never thought of. Number three is that you now, like, you are part of another community. So I just want to say that if you go at your pace, eventually you will get it. You will get what you are wanting, you know, except if what you are wanting is something that is always tied to somebody else. If what you are wanting is something that is an objective thing, I want to know how to do this. I want to be able to, you know, make this and do that. Things that are competence based, not things that are I want to be the first in Nigeria. I want to be the second globally. Those kind of things are traps for burnout. Even when you do that to your children, people will advise you to not do that, because you are just trying to make their life miserable. So why will you not do that to yourself? You know, when at this stage in life, you should not just be competing, you know, you should rather be enjoying your life. Okay. So in summary, try to just sit back and look at your career, look at your life, and just imagine what the perfect balance is. For some people, the perfect balance is they want to have maybe actual, real 1 month vacation a year. They want to be able to understand how some of the reports that other people build for them, consultants that the company engages build. So you find out that it might just be four things, four specific things that are the real thing, that are what you really want to know. And the truth is, those four things are achievable. But because you have always been looking at it from somebody's speeding more than me, somebody's ahead of me, you'll be looking at the consultant that built it. You look at him and you're like, oh, this guy is a guru. When will I become like him? Whereas you go back to office, you see another guy at the office that is doing something else, but what he's doing is also doing it better. He gets a lot of praises. You also compare. It's like a sports person compares himself with the footballer, compares himself with the person playing golf, compares himself. Whereas the person who is playing football is not playing golf. But you now, you compare yourself with the person playing golf, you want to be like him. You compare with the person playing football, you want to be like him. You will never be happy. So just look at yourself. What are the things you want to have? What are the things that for you? And it's not difficult because if you genuinely look within and ask yourself, what are those things that you would be very happy to know? What are those things that you'll be very happy to do? They are never really much, if you ask me. For me, when I ask myself that, money never surfaces in it. And that has helped me a lot because I don't feel pressure when I see people talk about how much money they are earning or how much their business is blowing and all of that. Because for me, I asked myself those questions, money was not there. Comfort was there, but the comfort was not like just money. So me now, I prefer to be comfortable, even if the comfortable means to be in a country where cost of living is low sometimes, that can be it for me than just wanting all the money. But there are some other people that theirs is different. What I just know is that the truth is it's very few things. It could be 4, 3, or 5. And then once you have all those things figured out, you can have a plan. Your plan can be something that, okay, so maybe I'll just be a bit more specific. For me, even those who have read my blog, I wrote it, and those who know me a bit closely, they already know this. I have always wanted to know finance, to be in finance. This was like 8 years ago, 9 years ago, when I was just a data analyst. So I've always wanted to be like a stocks investment analyst. That was what that's always been one of the things that when I asked myself what I really wanted was there. Then language, I've always wanted to know other languages. Well, then I was thinking maybe French, Spanish, and Italian. But after struggling with French, I think I'm okay with just French. I've always wanted to also be a bit sports-like, not really like a sports person, but sports, like actively participating in some kind of recreational activities. So that one involved a bit of dabbling into swimming, this and that. And but the key thing is that's another thing I've always wanted. Then the number 4 one is a bit more of family adventure, like having to be able to maybe travel somewhere by road, free your mind. And so for me, those are like, I think those are the 4 things. I think there's a 5th one. Write a book too. That's the 5th one. That's why I say none of it, money was not there at all. And because I knew those things, I started creating things around them. This year, I've been taking French classes every week since January. I gave myself to write the exam, a French exam. I eventually wrote it last week. But the key thing is, because I knew what I wanted, I was able at the beginning of the year, when things are a lot more relaxed, to set it in motion. At the beginning of the year, I was doing that French classes thrice a week. It was not stressful. But I tell you, when it got to like middle of the year, I wanted to stop. But because I had started, right? So I took advantage of that beginning part, right? Then just to stop talking, the key thing is the fact. Okay, so there's a question. So the key thing is that once you identify those things, you will just start setting in motion some activities that maybe just once a week, once a month, but consistent, that you have set it like that. Maybe that's why I like the one where you even pay somebody. If I pay a trainer or I pay somebody to help me with something else, I feel much more committed. Not committed just because of money, but because we have set the time. The person is going to be reminding me, okay, we have a class tomorrow. And that setting things in motion helps a lot, that I will not just need all my own strength to achieve it. Okay. So Madam Fuke is asking, what do you consider optimum in terms of performance and stress level? I don't know. I know some people who are peak performance consultant. I've read a lot of their books. I have some. I'm always buying because when you read the advert or you read the summary, you always feel like you need the book, and so I buy the book. I read it. One thing that I know that they say is a thing of the mind. They say your peak performance happens just at the point where you are close to breakdown, kind of. You are working every day. That is happening to me right now. This month of November, a whole lot of companies want to complete training. They don't want to spill it into December. They don't want it to go into next year. So I'm kind of like working every day, right? And I'm achieving a lot, but I know that the things I'm achieving, if somebody tries to add maybe just an empty bottle of Coke on top of the load I'm carrying, I might collapse. So they say that's like your peak performance where you are doing the things you enjoy. They also say it must be something you really enjoy anyway. But you are doing it at a rate that you are stressed, that you just want to rest too. They say that's peak performance. And they say peak performance is not a state that you should be in for too long too. Otherwise, it will cross from peak performance to actual breakdown. So they say it should be things that, you know, you almost like when you are driving and you are speeding, you speed, you slow, you speed, you slow. But that most of your outputs, if you look at the whole year, most of your outputs will happen, or your very huge results will come out from those points of your peak performance, those points where you are using extra life kind of to do whatever you are doing. So people describe it too when they are writing books. They start writing book very slow, it's problematic. They can't come up with idea. They are there for 1 week, they can't write one page, and then they keep trudging up, and then suddenly they start writing, and then they start writing in such a way that almost every other thing suffers. They're writing in the middle night, they can't sleep. I mean, they are not sleeping well enough, and then they churn out a lot in that period. That's their peak performance. But the moment they finish writing the book, they go and rest. They just don't want to write anything else again. They'll be like, I'm never going to write anything in my own life again. Or people who do PhD too, like, I'm not going back to school. Or that feeling where you find out that things you did that you are most proud of, the moment you finish them, you are like, never in my life am I going to do this again. you know. But then you still have to go and find another one you will do that will give you that feeling. But that they said is where you are experiencing your peak performance. You can't have it all the time. Otherwise, you really, really break down. But if you don't have that feeling an entire year, an entire 2 years, then that's also another problem. It means you're not living to your potential. Okay, so that's the end. I think the other thing I have is just this last slide, which is all about. For me, it came easy, but I saw it in people who are not doing this, and I saw how much that it's making them undervalue themselves. If you keep learning, if you're always learning, and that's one thing I like about finance people. Finance people, they are the people who are most willing to learn. I can't really point out what is different about them that makes them about the job that makes them want to learn. But I know that when we have trainings, we get a lot more from finance. And the way they know a lot, that's the thing I like about them. When people know Excel, most other people who know Excel, they don't think they want to do training. They will rate themselves, 7/10, 8/10. The finance person who knows times two what they know, that one is still coming for training, and that person is still more humble. He wants to learn more. And so I know that finance people are good at learning. I can't really point out what is different about the job that makes them want to learn. But the other problem is some of them just keeps learning and learning and learning and learning and learning and learning and learning. And the thing about learning is you always see something you don't know. And then after you learn that one you don't know, you find out you've forgotten the one you knew before. And so the cycle keeps, repeating. There's never going to be satisfaction if you are the kind of person who really is a very, you really like learning. You will never feel like you've learned enough. But you know what? If you mix learning with sharing and teaching, let me tell you how it happens. I learned how to do something. I learned it so well that I wrote about it. I taught somebody else about it, right? But let me talk about the I wrote about it, because that's the one that is easy for everybody. You can always write. You don't need to find somebody to teach to write. So you can always, that's why I was always advise people that having a blog can be something that will make your life more balanced and change a lot positively for you. It did for me. Almost everything that happened in my life outside of 4 years or 3 years after university, I can trace 90% of them to my blog. even my marriage happened from my blog. It's that very encompassing. And the thing I'm just wanting to bring out is I learned something, I write about it, right? 4 years after, I don't even know the thing anymore. Then I go online to Google about that thing and I see what I wrote. That feeling is indescribable, right? That feeling alone justifies that I learned it that time. I will never feel like the person who forgot it, went online to search, saw something else. That person is still going to feel sad about himself that forgotten this thing, oh, and I knew it very well. Oh. For me now, because I can see what I created when I knew it, I'm proud of myself. I'm even happier, than the person who learned it and did not forget it. Why? I created something, I thought, I shared, and that evidence is there, is living on. It could even be that you've moved on and the people you thought you come across there, and the person is saying, yeah, thank you. That thing that you taught me 5 years ago, that was what gave me a breakthrough. And me that I thought you have forgotten, or you that you thought the person you forgot it, you will be happy that you learned it, even for the sake of that person that you taught, right? So you don't want to just be learning and learning, because if you learn, you will forget. You can't know everything you learn. You can't remember everything permanently. We are not robots, or what are we going to put? So you need to teach, you need to share. That's what completes the cycle of growth. That's what really makes you accomplished at what you learn. So you learn something, you share about it, you teach it to someone else. Even if you forget, it lives on in that other person, and that accomplishment is there. It's just something that, it won't make you feel bad, because what it makes is some people now feel bad about learning new things. They'll be like, even the one I learned, I forgot. So sometimes they now hold themselves back. They want to now be learning the same thing they've been learning, or want to reduce the amount of exposure they get, so that they don't keep experiencing, I learn this, I forget, I learn it, so you see some people who, they say, bring it on, I want to learn Python, I want to learn Power BI, I want to learn everything. They don't think about, how am I going to use it, how am I going to remember everything. And then you see some other people, they will be telling you story of, oh, how I learned this one 5 years ago, how I learned that one 10 years ago, how I learned. I'm not using them, and because of that, they are not motivated to learn again. And then you will see somebody else who also has been learning all those things, but because he was creating content, he was writing blog, or he was teaching other people. Yes, he's forgotten, but he's still energized to learn other things. Why? He knows that when he learns something, he's going to create value with it, and that value is going to live on. So even when he forgets, that value exists. Okay, so I always tell people to teach or share, and it justifies the learning. Even if you forget later on, you won't feel bad about it. You'll be proud of yourself even. So that's the end. And how does this one tie back to stress? I don't know. But the key thing is that uh, you will always have a much more positive outlook to, positive disposition to learning things, and not feel bad that you're forgetting what you've learned. So that's the end of what I had planned, and I'm looking at the time, it's already even past 3. So I hope you've enjoyed what we've done today. Ultimately, try to enjoy, have fun in the whole process. It's your life, it's your career, it's you at the center of it all. So enjoy the journey of whether you're feeling like you are slow, or you're feeling like things are not working fast enough, or you're having breakthroughs. Just enjoy it the same way. When you are having breakthroughs, let it be as joyous for you as even when things are slow. When things are slow, remember when you are having breakthroughs. And when you're having breakthroughs, remember when things were slow. And that way you will see that, when you are speeding on the road and the road is fine, you know that you might get somewhere there is pothole. You will now not want to turn back and go back to where the road was fine. You will know that it's just part of the journey. So thank you very, very much. And I hope to see you again next week. And if you have any questions, I can take maybe 1 or 2 more questions. In the meantime, anybody who is interested in doing the FMI exam, okay, let me just post that. That's gone wrong with my projector. It's to extend. Any more questions? I'm just going to post two things. One is the link to write the exam discount. So if you're interested in getting a discount for the exam, doing that right now. Then the second one is feedback. If you have anybody you want to, in fact, based on what I've said, I think you should volunteer yourself to come and share your experience. At least you can see that everything we talk about can be across different angles. You can come and share just your own experience. And sometimes you can even decide that you want to teach about something more soft skill. And then if you have something technical also too. So please just also use this our platform as an avenue for you to share what you know and teach. And like I said, that will always help you to be proud of what you have learned so that 10 years, 5 years from now, if you do no longer remember that thing, you will not feel bad because you might just be searching online and you come across this your session you delivered and you see the comments there and you see what people are saying, you'll be like, wow, somebody, several oceans away saying he enjoyed your session, he blah blah, he applied what he learned, and you can't even remember what it is. That joy is something you always remember, even more than the thing that you knew before. So thank you very much, and wrapping up the session. So have a very wonderful rest of the day. If you're interested in our other sessions that are happening very soon, there is the Excel. So we have a very wonderful person who is going to share with us on creating applications in Excel, creating stuffs that can solve problem in your company without having to, first of all, look for software to use. Let's even create it. If we are going to use software, let us know that we have created it first. We understand what the software should do, and then we'll be buying the right software. So HR management app using Excel. That will happen at 4 p.m. And then we have someone all the way from US who's going to take us on Power BI. And that one is happening at 6 p.m. Let me just share all of that. Interested? Join us. So bye-bye. I see no questions. So I'm going to end the session right now.